Today, we're diving into a moment in history that is so critical, but often gets overlooked. We're talking about the cabinet mission of 1946. This was it. This was Britain's last-ditch, high-stakes gamble to hand over power to a single united India. So, let's unpack how this final, desperate effort went so wrong.
And I'm not exaggerating when I say this. This really was the last chance. Before the tragic lines of partition were drawn, before all the violence erupted, this was the final attempt to hold the subcontinent together through diplomacy. The stakes just couldn't have been any higher.
So, how did we even get to this point? Well, to really get why this mission was so important, you've got to picture India right after World War II. It was a total pressure cooker. Britain was drained economically and ready to leave. But they had this huge problem. Who do we hand the keys to, and is the house going to be in one piece when we do? And the recent elections had just thrown gasoline on the fire. You see, instead of making things clearer, they just cemented the divisions. You had the two biggest political parties in the country at a complete and total standstill, staring each other down. And this right here, this is the heart of the problem. On one side, you have the Indian National Congress. They wanted one single, unified India. Simple. But on the other side, you have the All India Muslim League, led by Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and they were absolutely determined to get a separate nation, Pakistan, for the Muslim-majority areas. These weren't just different policies. These were two completely opposite, irreconcilable futures for millions of people. So, faced with this total gridlock, the British government knew they couldn't just pack their bags and run. A messy, chaotic exit would be a disaster. So they decided they had to try one last thing. They put together a high-powered team to fly in and try to broker a deal at the 11th hour. And that was the cabinet mission. And we're not talking about junior diplomats here. No, they sent 3 senior members of their own cabinet. Their job was to get to India, get the leaders in a room, and hammer out some kind of constitutional solution that hopefully wouldn't lead to civil war. And these were the guys tasked with this, well, almost impossible job. You had Lord Pethick Lawrence, the head of the India office, Sir Stafford Cripps, who'd been down this road before, and A.V. Alexander. The future of the entire subcontinent was basically resting on their shoulders. Now, their official to-do list was, let's be honest, ridiculously ambitious. Of course, they wanted a peaceful transfer of power and a new constitution. But the two big ones, the ones that really mattered, were keeping India united and protecting minorities. Avoiding partition wasn't just on the list. It was the whole point of the exercise. So after weeks of just grueling negotiations that basically went nowhere, the mission decided, okay, if they can't agree, we'll just propose our own solution. And what they came up with was this incredibly intricate compromise, a plan designed to somehow, miraculously, satisfy both sides. Okay, so what they proposed was wild. Think of it like a 3-layer government. Right at the very top, you'd have a super weak central union government. It would only handle the big stuff: defense, foreign affairs, and communications. That's it. Then below that, you'd have these 3 powerful groups of provinces, almost like their own mini-countries. And then at the bottom, the individual provinces would hold all the rest of the power. And here, right here, is the clever bit. Group A would be all the Hindu majority provinces, but then you'd have Group B bundling the Muslim majority provinces in the northwest, and Group C doing the same in the northeast. You see what they're doing? They're essentially creating the geographical shape of Pakistan, but keeping it inside the framework of a united India? I mean, you have to admit it was a pretty ingenious idea. The plan gave the Congress Party what it wanted most. On paper, a single united India. But it also gave the Muslim League what it wanted most: real power and autonomy in the regions where Muslims were the majority. It was this incredible attempt to give both sides a win. And for a moment, it almost worked. Both sides, yeah, with a lot of grumbling and reservations, but they tentatively agreed. But the whole delicate structure came crashing down over the interpretation of a single, crucial detail, one little point that would doom the entire plan. So here's where it all fell apart. It came down to this. Was the grouping of provinces optional or compulsory? The Muslim League said it has to be compulsory. No exceptions. For them, this was the only way to guarantee that their groups would be strong and autonomous. But the Congress Party said, no way. Provinces have to be free to choose. They were terrified that compulsory grouping was just partition in disguise. And then, this happened. Jawaharlal Nehru, who was about to become the first prime minister, gave a press conference.
And he said that while Congress might accept the plan now, once India was independent, its new government would be free to change it however it wanted. For Nehru, this was just stating a fact of sovereignty. But for the Muslim League, it sounded like a threat, the ultimate betrayal.
Jinnah immediately jumped on Nehru's statement. He basically said, "See, I told you so. We can't trust them." He argued it was proof that as soon as the British were gone, Congress would use its majority to scrap the whole group system. And with that fear front and center, the Muslim League officially pulled out. The deal was dead. And with the collapse of this last-ditch compromise, the whole situation just spiraled out of control with terrifying speed. The road of negotiation was now closed for good, and a much darker path opened up, one that led straight to tragedy. Just look at how fast everything happened. In July, the deal collapses. A few weeks later, in August, the Muslim League calls for Direct Action Day. It was meant to be a protest, but it exploded into horrific riots, especially in Calcutta. Thousands were killed. After that explosion of violence, the British were completely spooked. They decided the situation was just ungovernable, and partition went from being a possibility to seeming like the only way out. And that's the real takeaway here. The failure of this one plan, this one last hope, was the point of no return. It was the moment that the idea of a united India died. After this, the momentum towards separation, towards partition, just became an unstoppable force. So it leaves us with this massive, haunting question. Was the partition of India always going to happen? Some kind of historical destiny? Or was this the moment? Was the collapse of this one diplomatic mission the tipping point that sealed the subcontinent's fate? It's a what-ifs that historians still debate to this day. And it's